I was talking to another guy that he's doing these podcasts now, and he's
Yeah.
kind of complaining that people are not putting money behind. And I say, listen, but these things take time.
Take time.
And then also, if you're gonna talk to what you think is gonna get you a lot of attention, then you've lost the battle already.
100%. En it's difficult. Baie keer dan, soos dan dink jy vir jouself, okay, daar was so 2 of 3 episodes terug, waar ek gedink het, okay, nee, ek moet try om die ding te monetize, because nou begin jy aan die bil te kyk, van die goed, oor die jare wat jy spandeer, I must start monetizing. And then it started taking my mind away from what I was trying to achieve. Het begin jou te laat dink aan geld, en then you start thinking aan, jy dink aan advertensies en goede, and you forget. Excuse me. Yeah. Those things will come when the time is right. Let's build something amazing.
But you see, and that's the other thing about when brands come on board. My experience is I feel marketing people at these companies are actually also not that great. I'm sorry,
I was a marketing guy.
Yeah,
Wait, before we go further, I'm pressing record.
Yeah, go.
It's fine. Okay, go.
Go.
So I've got the same feelings.
Yeah, because I feel that it's either they don't really know what they're doing, and now, like, let's say you look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're creating a product. It's like in your mind, sort of like how you want it to be.
Yes.
And in a way, you want those guys to just come along for the ride. You're not asking them to tell you, can you do it this way for us?
Yes.
That's not how it should be.
It doesn't work like that. I was just talking to Kashif about the same thing as that. And I was in marketing. And there's good marketing people out there. But the truth is the world has shifted to that a lot of the times when brands come in, they want to change the thing to what suits their needs rather than just embracing what it is and not what's made it popular. And then hy tasselery. Maar ook, people don't have the vision om te sien waarheen gaan 'n ding. As ek nou sit en kyk na baie van die, as ouens wat ek kyk en ek kan sien, this is worth investing in now, because this thing's gonna be. And I've seen it in my career. Very, very early days of black coffee. Early, I'm talking about 15 plus years ago. Then he was already a big DJ. Then I heard that he would go to Ibiza. Maar hy is nie op die line-up op Ibiza nie. Hy gaan net. Hy DJ. Maar imagine, he's Ibiza. Maar hy is daar by die skit. Onder, by die tavern vibes, And he was playing small venues around Ibiza. And then I was like, this guy's gonna win. I just got a feeling he's gonna win. And he would go year in, year out. Luis Gola, sell a story. Luis Gola is hier weg. Trevor Noah, people don't know this. Trevor Noah doen sy show hier klaar. Dan vat hy die geld, né? Dan gaan bly in cheap hotels oor see. Vir 'n goeie, ek dink dit was 'n goeie 6-7 jaar voor het gevat het. Terrible gig after terrible gig after terrible gig. People think you leave here, you go straight, because they just see the bridge. But you go like, imagine you invested in that guy.
Yeah.
At its infancy. There's a loyalty there.
Yeah. But that's the thing, and people, I mean, again, they don't really realize that, those kind of backstories.
Yeah, they know.
Because everything is immediate success. They think when they just discover somebody, and that's how it works.
So to be fair, I guess people live in their own little worlds, and you have to be like a foodie geek, for example, to have caught Reuben Riffel on the way up.
Yeah.
If you're working at whatever brand, selling paint or selling tomato sauce, if you're not invested in foodie culture, how would you ever even see this young potential? So anyway, dames en heren, today we've got Reuben Riffel. We already started speaking. It's such a pleasure to have you. En ek wil net sê, ons gaan mengels vandag. Ek wil net sê, I'm extremely proud of you. You know why? Because ek het gekyk, as hy een skandaal nie. You were quite boring. Ek sê net, die man het niks skandale nie. Hy het een keer 'n drunken driving, niksie. And I just want to say thank you for that, for being somebody we can look up to. But die man kan sê, hey, maar jy gehoor in 1994. Het hulle hom gevang met 6 pakke perlemoen agter in sy boot.
You see, but that's why I was worried today. I was coming here. I was like, See, man, I'm actually quite boring. I don't know what we're going to be talking about.
You're everything but boring. You're already like very interesting when you walked in here and you spoke about, uh, and we forget these things. That because again, we just spoke about it. We see Reuben Riffel, the restaurants, the brand endorsements, the judge of the thing. Groot, right? Maar ons vergeet, jy het gesê, jy ken Hankie in potensie, want jy het 'n gig gedoen, want jy het 'n chef. Dan was ek, iewers moes hy ook seker maar die grind doen. Iemand moes, when you said, oh no, foreigners kom in en dan sê die lys nou, cow milk en al die goede. En ons dink net, like, what is your, and we'll start by the beginning, but I want to know, what is the day-to-day life of a working chef like a business entrepreneur? Now you pass the point of, I've got a restaurant, I'm a chef. Now you're trying to make a little bit more income. What's that hustle like? You're trying to make more. Is it corporate events? Is it, okay, I'm going to go cook for this person? Is it anonymous stuff? You know, that anonymous stuff that people don't know. What is that life?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's there's a lot of that because you see, I mean, you know, once you kind of like create a certain brand where people kind of like they see you maybe either on TV or you've won an award and you've got something, so you kind of like your profile's been elevated a little bit.
Yeah.
So and I'm gonna go back to maybe the early days of that. Then there's a lot of that type of thing, you know, where you do lots of corporate stuff. You get invited to like, you know, really cool things where you obviously they expect you to do some cooking and making some, you know, like doing some, maybe maybe not a steak in a pan, but I mean, I've done all of that stuff as well. But you get invited to sort of interesting things. So, and then in time, maybe as you grow a little bit older, you kind of like start to choose the ones that you like.
Yes.
You know, so, and maybe that aligns with the way you kind of like try and live. I mean, I've got kids too, so that kind of affects now the type of things I take on. I don't like to be away from home for too long.
Yeah. 6 weke in Joburg, ons het 'n delegation.
I can't do that anymore. You know? I actually remember like a couple of trips that I did like that where, and my kids were like young. And it was a weird feeling where I almost, for a split second, I resented even my wife, the fact that she's got more time with him. It's a weird thing that happened to me where it was like, I said it to her, you know, and I said, like, that's weird. I don't want that. Because I had some idea in my, you know, you can say we go out and work for our kids. I get that. Yeah. But equally, the enjoyment is when we spend time with them. You know, it's not like us going out there and to sort of like, and we tell ourselves we do all these things to support them and our families. But I think there's a little balance that you need to kind of learn.
There's a lot of balance. I struggled with that last year. I was a bit concerned that my eldest boy, I mean, we're going to wakker skrik, man. Sien jy, hulle skrik wakkerie, 5, 6, hy sê wakker. And then he started to say things, are you leaving again? And hy het begin eet aan my. And the relationship, selfe story. Relationship with the mother is great. Maar jy kan sien, hy is nie by nie. Hy trek. Toe ek 'n laaitie was, as my pa sê, klim in die kar, ons gaan gou, het maak nie saak, gaan ons nou net om die draai ry, om 'n koeldrink te gaan koop, om huis toe te bring, ek is in die kar. And I started picking up that he wasn't really that interested. That sort of messed with me. En dit gebeur, and with same thing as I think you become popular, nou jy oral. And then there's a point at which you have to choose.
Yes.
Is maar net hoe dit is.
So that came kind of like, dit soort van later gekom by my, you know, like, I mean, where I kind of like now had to decide, listen, okay, they're a little bit bigger now, but I mean, you know, even like my son is now 12, so that's actually the time when they want to do stuff with dad. And, And my daughter's like a 16 teenager now. It's the same, you know. This is the time where I have to actually be around more.
100%.
I kind of like, it sounds like I'm putting it where I'm saying no to jobs. It's not like that.
You just choose the ones that make more sense.
I also don't want to say like I've got the complete luxury to always say no. I can't take that gig. You know,
I've got to go on the road. There's
exactly.
no way out.
Exactly. So I still have to do those things. Look, I mean, I have to be honest. I feel I had to really like find my way through this because I was like really thrown in at some stage where I come from a small little town, Franschhoek, so I wasn't really prepared for like especially fame, and then you actually still a chef, and you know, and you got to be there, and so now you know how it is. Now people maybe have seen you on TV, but I'm still there in the kitchen working, and and then you also have to be out there.
Yeah, it's a different job.
It's a different job. That's the thing, you know. And there was times when I just felt like I just want to be in the kitchen. I mean, this is actually where I'm comfortable. Where I'm comfortable and enjoying myself. Yeah. So yeah, fine. It was quite a thing, kind of. And I don't think it's something that you can say you ever get used to, or you like know how to deal with it, you know. Because you know yourself. We deal with the good stuff and the bad stuff and the, you know. Sometimes I don't want to meet people that kind of like look up to me or you know.
Absolutely, like there's moments where I appreciate the audience members so baie. I always make a thing out of it that you can always come up and take a picture. Maar as daar wat ek emotionally lekker is.
Yes.
Ek kan voel aan my, I'm not having a great day. And the last thing I want to do is bump into somebody that I'm going to not be my like sort of bubbly best at. Maar dit gebeur. Nou sê jy so dink jy, asseblief moenie vra vir 'n foto. Vandag is dit die dag vir my nie. Maar dit gebeur. And humans aren't meant to be this popular. It's
exactly.
not normal.
You know, and even now saying that, I feel uncomfortable talking as if now you're this.
It's just you take it for granted. You know? It's not. I love that. But
I also love that.
Every human has a day.
I also love that, and I appreciate all the support always, and people that kind of like send messages, and I do. But I mean, there's sometimes
there's a human factor.
Yeah.
So you said you're from a small town. Let's start from the beginning. I like to start from the beginning. You Franschhoek, born and bred.
Ja. Nee? Groendal, Franschhoek.
Groendal. Ja. Baie belangrik. Ja. Ek is van Hankie. Ek sê altyd vir mense, I carry my flag. Ek is from day one. Ek is van Hankie. Ek is nou ons gaan kuier nou. My maale bly nog in die huis waar ek groot geword het. So it's a great ding. Maar as ek kyk aan die footage en goede, baie Franschhoek is 'n pragtige plek. I mean everyone knows that. Maar die plek Groendal gee vir my daai energy wat ek groot geraak het. Is woonbeer.
Exactly.
Ja, almal ken mekaar in die straat.
Yeah. By ons, that you know, it's like the way I grew up, and when I tell a story, very often I then it dawns on me that I was kind of like lucky. You know, I don't see the other stuff, you know, that we all know about. I grew up in a town where in a street, Oak Street, so lined with oak trees. My grandfather had like a patch of land, just sort of, let's say, 4 kilometers outside of Groendal towards more like the farmland side.
Yeah.
And so he was like farming with vegetables, and he had some livestock. So we kind of like almost lived that farm life in a way too, where it's from a food point of view as well. And I mean, everyone was into gardening, and my dad, I'm sure they...
A connection with the earth.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even on our plot in Groendal, at some stage I think we had 2 cows, baie hoenders, you know,
hoenders,
like kapokkies wat daar rondgaan.
Ja, kapokhoendertjies, ja. Hulle verkoop hulle by Nando's nog, baie klein. En Reuben het dit gesê in Nando's. So 100%, like, ek wil ook net noem, dat mense, wanneer hulle sê, soos wanneer jy nou sê, ek verstaan presies waarvan jy praat, want my oupa het 'n plaas gehad, daai woorde. Ek het ook familie en oom, aunties, hulle het 'n stukkie land. Mense dink plaas, jy weet, like, as dredge, is 'n lappie grond.
Is 'n lappie grond, ja.
Wat een familie aan die gang hou. Is hy, you know, is hoe sê my ouma het al gesê, is 'n korte morgen. Jy weet, like, is 'n lappie grond. En jy werk hy grond, as hy, eintlik, as hy man, there's no farmhands, en julle doen dit self.
No. It's sometimes, it's baie moeilik vir my om dit te beskryf, maar dit is nie 'n plaas nie, jy weet, dit is daai nie. So dit was, hy het ook net 'n gedeelte van dit kon hy goed plant.
Ja.
Jy weet, dit was net hy. Ja. En dan as hy hulp nodig het, dan moet een van ons gaan Ek was
Van
altyd een van die gewillige ouens. Baie van my neefs was hulle daai kant toe gehardloop as hulle sien hier kom oupa afgestap. So I kind of like grew up like that in a way, and like where the families cooked together. My grandmother was the first one with a TV in our street, so we used to congregate there to go and watch. Jy kan nou nie eens al daai ou programme.
Wat was dit nie? Het was voor Dallas geweest. My pa Falcon Crest.
Falcon Crest. There was one. I don't know if it was the Saint or something. I remember, but it
the
was,
Saint, yeah.
Yeah. So those are the things that we were watching there. My uncles had a band called the Mascots.
Okay.
So they fashioned themselves to be like Queen almost. They had that kind of vibe.
Alles aan Franschhoek.
Alles net in Franschhoek. My
Die band speel die weekend is by oom.
Yeah, for a long time I was like trying to figure out, is my dad now a musician? And then I found out, no, he was just a doorman,
He was the accountant.
The accountant, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, but kind of like very carefree in a way, with all the other problems added to it, the normal stuff. But there was never issues with, like, from a food point of view. I mean, my grandmother baked our bread. It was all like that. But obviously, never you never had the newest Nikes. Or back then, it was more Adidas and those type of stuff, high techs or whatever. So that was never like in abundance. But you really never felt like you lacked anything.
It's a weird thing because ek kom van 'n klein dorp and my father was a shopkeeper and my ma was 'n onderwyser. And I always go like, at the time, and dan dink jy altyd vir yourself, one day I'm going to move to the city. I've moved to the city and I now realize what a privilege it was to grow up in a town where my pa nooit, Uncle Henry hulle was nog altyd die neighbors. As ek nou huis toe gaan, hy kap haar langs dit. Hy is nou nog so. My pa sê, gaan vra vir Henry, sê vir Henry, sy hamer terug. You know what I mean? Like it's a different way of life that my kids will never completely understand. Net hy stukkie van die lappie grond en die oom wat die bakkie is gebreek op hel, maar there's a simplicity, but there's a carefree energy to it.
But that's why it's important, I feel, because I feel I tell my story quite often, maybe, and I in my some of my cookbooks I've told the story, sometimes on TV I've told the story, but I think it's important.
Very important.
We have to keep on telling it. I don't care if people say, but you keep on telling that story. I'm going to keep on telling it because we must tell people how we grew up, and I'm quite adamant also to say that don't say I grew up poor or I didn't feel I was poor.
No.
I didn't know. I wasn't comparing myself to Kim Kardashian on...
No. Everyone in the street looked like me.
Yeah.
Niemand het Adidas gehad.
Exactly. Exactly. So we were, it was... Again, if I talk about like the food, the bread that my grandmother baked, my grandfather had it was mostly pigs. So and then there was like whenever there's a slaughter, then it's like a groot story.
Ja, slag.
En dan partykeer kom die band ook nog in as aan die einde van die aand waar jy weet dan gebeur dit ook nog. Jy weet it was like that type of stuff.
Klink like it's idyllic eintlik.
Yes.
En so nou van hy dorp af ek het gelees en gesien jy sê okay you went into construction. Now that is a very common thing. Like my pa was in construction voor hy gevind het wat baie mense because so the options weren't like abundant, right? Jy gaan was there never op school as 'n kind did you ever veer towards the kitchen of dit gebeur as a consequence of opportunity?
Yeah, it was all like that. It was more I start by saying always we start to get an interest in food because we like eating. I mean that's it's I was never thinking of how was this made or anything like that. But obviously growing up in that kind of in the street where lots of family and people were, I mean it was you knew who baked the best cakes, you knew who made the nicest food and all of that type of stuff. And then I think the bigger interest came when my mom on Sundays especially, I mean during the week she worked in a bottle store there in town, and she used to come back home at around sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, and then my job was to always we had like a wood burning dove stove.
Ja,
So
ja,
I
ja.
had to-
Jy moet die
ek
vuurstoof-
moet die vuur aan die gang kry.
Ja.
But not so much cooking then, but then mostly on Sundays I had to do some. I had to help her because you can imagine Sundays we don't just eat a stew. I
7 colors.
ja, is 'n roast en dan is daar 'n
Beet
bietjie
dit.
hoender curry ook nog en 'n bietjie beet en al daai
Ja.
goeders. En dan moet die kaste ook nog gemaak word vir
Ja.
vir die peskus.
Groot dag.
Yeah.
Ja.
So, I had to jump in a lot there too. And then I remember she had this old cookbook that we had to kind of like just follow the instructions there. But she gave us like menial things to do. And I think, like in my case, only when I went to high school then, those kind of early experiences with my mom maybe tickled my interest in cooking a little bit more. And then, because now, when they're not there or they can't cook something, you're like, yes, but I need to learn how to make some of these things because I don't just want to open a can of meatballs and beans.
Yeah.
I want to.
Kent.
Yeah. I'd rather want to make this stuff, And so I remember then I started to experiment, like I go deep into my mom's cupboards finding spices. And so I come from school and then I start cooking these things. And the first thing I think I made on my own because my mom taught me how to make it was this like sago pudding. That was, because
No
that
praat
was-
jy die waarheid. I love a sago pudding.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I still love it to today. And then then you have your friends asking, because now I've made it for them, and then now I'm at the shop playing pinball or whatever.
Met die sokkerbal,
Dan kom
tafel.
my chommy agter en sê, because now he tasted the sago pudding, and then he's like, can you deel a recipe met my, man? And then we're there sort of sharing sago
Recipes.
pudding recipes.
En hoorspel. Dis 'n unique ding want ons like you come from a generation like just about I'm just a little young. I'm 6 years younger than you. I go, it's a very butch time. Like
Yes,
to be talking about recipes.
Yeah.
You might get a hiding for that in
No,
NK.
Exactly. That was that time, where you didn't see a lot of where men, especially or young, boys were talking about recipes. Like today, it's fine. Today we've kind of like it's
Yeah,
like
it's
we all do it.
commonplace.
Commonplace.
But also nog 'n ding is that there's little gifts that come in your life, like you said, jou ma laat jou kos maak by die huis. Many people like as ek huis toe gekom het, ek het chops uitgehaal. My ma was so upset geweest. You know what I mean? Like they were good with it. My broer was actually meer wat gaan kon te maak, but parents, let's be honest, didn't let you rummage around in the kitchen.
No, but I can tell you, my mom was also not very happy, when because there's spices that was hidden away, and now
Dit het nou
I
gebruik
rummaged
nou.
in there, and like, ek het nou goed gaan oopmaak wat ek nie moes oopmaak nie. And then also I found a packet of frozen mints in the freezer,
And she had it in her head for Friday
for
night.
some other,
Yeah,
also get in
so
trouble.
doesn't get into trouble. Okay. So then from there you go, okay, julle gaan, was it a situation of ek moet nou gaan werk? There wasn't like ek gaan nou gaan study. Daar was nooit daai nie.
Yeah, look, I mean, I grew up in this kind of obviously broader family, and surely we knew about, going to universities, but I don't think our family was ever very academic, and not that that's at all.
Not so bad.
It's not like there weren't people in our family that kind of like spread their wings and wanted to be more. I don't think, like in a lot of our communities, we don't really have that luxury of sort of taking a gap year or trying to figure out what you wanted to become. So my options, I just didn't like any of them. I didn't sort of, okay, go to university to go study what? In my mind, there was a time when I was thinking, because I read somewhere about, journalism, and because I felt I could write stories. And at school, I actually quite enjoyed that because I loved reading. But I didn't know a journalist. I didn't know, I didn't know who to go talk to about
Where
that
to start.
stuff. So exactly, just where to start. And then a lot of my older cousins and people, some of them were teachers,
Yes.
A lot of them were
Lots of
teachers.
teachers.
Yeah. And then a policeman here and there.
Bewaarder.
Bewakers and that was it. So so I had that kind of like where I just didn't know where the hell I wanted to go. So I ended up working with my dad on the construction site.
Klim op die van.
Clear?
Gaan ons. And you know, there's this thing, and sorry man, I just want to push this closer to you.
Okay.
There's this thing where there was a time, and I think it was in my generation, where it was almost like, jy moet gaan study, dit maak nie saak wat nie. And the family would put themselves under enormous, and my family did the same thing, in enormous amounts of financial strain to make that happen. And then only one kid, a lot of the times only one kid gets to study, doesn't finish because it's something that they weren't really interested in, because we didn't have the understanding at the time or the tools to get it. So many times in these families, the person that goes, kyk, ek wil gaan study nie, ek is nie gemaak vir dit, ek gaan hier afgaan, ek gaan plumbing doen of gaan dit doen, became more successful than the guy that got the opportunity to go to university.
A lot of those stories,
Yeah, because you go and figure it out.
Yeah.
You go and figure it out. And there's an honor and a pride in going to figure it out. See, that's what we niks wil gaan doen nie.
No.
You just want to go and figure it out. This is not for you.
But look what's happened today. Because, and listen, education is key. It's super important. But you need to, you need to have some kind of plan where you want to be going. But like, look how many people are studying at universities today and people that are done with their studies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean like it's a immediate sort of path to success.
No.
You still need to kind of know how to navigate life and know how to, you can't just assume because I've got this degree, I'm going to walk into a job now. It doesn't work like that.
It does not work like that. I always say, like, I was fortunate enough. My parents sent me to university. And then I went into marketing straight out of university. But today, 20 odd years plus later, every university is pushing out 1,000 marketing guys. The world is tough out there now. There's a lot of people with the same paperwork, which makes you less special, than it was 20 years ago. But I always tell my father, he was all about, because he never got the opportunity to go and study, he was all about, jy moet gaan leer, jy moet gaan leer, jy moet gaan leer. And bless his heart, right? It helped a lot. Maar he doesn't realize the best thing he actually did for me is pushing me into a job from a very young age. Hy het die winkel gehad, I went to, na school, 10 jaar oud. Jy gaan doen iets. Al werk jy nie op die tully, jy pak. Of jy vee die bottles so that I did a
lot of that too.
And then you get human interaction. And so when I was finished when I walked into the world, there was a understanding of how to make a rand and the importance of figuring it out in Aiguta. So I think there's balance to be had. Absolutely.
Look, I mean, I like with my kids too. I said to my son the other day, my dad, when my friends came and he would say to me, daar's 'n graaf, spit net so vir my daar so 'n bietjie of 'n vark, dolg daai grond om, hy wil goed plant daar so. Dan sê hy vir my, hy wil net kyk of my vriende my gaan help. Like I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying
but
he used to do stuff like that, And I'm like, why would they want to help me now? You're giving me work. When my friends, he did like funny things like that sometimes.
Your father was
so certain places I can say, okay, maybe that worked. But why I'm saying it is my son today, I'm like, I tell him this story. I'm like, boy, you need to, you want a fish or you want a dog, but who's going to pick up the doo-doo afterwards? Like I think there's a softness to sometimes how we raise our kids now. Today. I don't know. I don't want to be too hard on that. I think the world changed, and we have to kind of like find that midway somewhere, I suppose. Yeah. But certain things like the way we grew up, still I think is there's some important lessons there.
100%, and I think it's getting softer as time goes on. Yes. Like my father had a tougher time than what I had, and I'm giving my sons a softer time. Yeah. And then I don't know where that ends. Because that saying, and I like that thing where they say, hard men make soft times and soft men make hard times.
Yes.
Or women. But that is definitely a thing I think about, especially with boys.
Yes.
You know what? Because I think so much of what I do today I go on the road, for example, and it goes back to what we spoke about earlier. I go on the road and ons is in Gravenet of ons is in Nelspruit. A lot of the times I'm alone. I figure it out. Die sound het nie gewerk nie. I call someone. I put it together myself. And it's so second nature to me to just... But then I think of myself, then sometimes I take people with me and I can see how they panic. and they lost. And I go, hoekom is jy so lost? Want ek kom van 'n winkel af, man. Jy maak 'n plan, you know, and that's a skill in and of itself. And taking on the world and making a plan and not collapsing and crumbling when things don't go exactly your way.
But isn't that the kind of like sometimes certain things that can frustrate you? It frustrates me when somebody comes back to me with saying, no, they couldn't find this, or they couldn't, they just didn't know how to get to, and then I'm like, these are the things where I now know with all the tools we have today, you tell me you can't find.
My friend, ek het al vriende verloor so. Van nou begin jy besef, man, die jong, ek is hard nou, was like, dis nog al die derde keer wat jy vir my sê, jy kan nie. You say, make a plan, bra, jy's groot. And then you start realizing, jy was 'n bietjie saggroot geraak. En dis wat ek worry oor my light is. Maar anyway, we digress. So from there now, you in the building trade. How long are you in the building trade?
No, I think I soon realized after jy weet ek het begin eel te kry op my hande.
Cement poisoning.
En my rug het bietjie
van daga maak. As hardware guy. As hardware guy.
So then I started to kind of like doubt. Well, I knew from the beginning it wasn't something I wanted to do, but now you're after like some kind of income, you know, like
of course,
just to make a bit of money. Until you also realize that once you get the little packet and your mum standing there waiting for it already, jy maar afgee. But I mean, I have to say, it woke me up to reality of what my dad, the job, the work, the toughness of it.
Yeah.
But also for them at that stage, it was then also just second nature. That was what they knew. Yeah. But it kind of woke me up to the reality of, you know, when you start to smell the, you know, hard work.
Yeah.
Smell...
It's very hard work.
Jy ruik die cement and listen, I respect all these
people.
They do great work. But at that stage, obviously, I wanted more for myself.
Yes.
You know? And then maybe it dawned on me there that, listen, there's more for you out there. You know, I was like becoming really serious about my life. Yeah. Weirdly, not discussing that with my parents. I was like, kind of in a way, a bit down on myself, and on the other side it kind of like forced me to focus a little bit on where I'm going to be going, what, you know, the next step and the next step. So then when my mom then got me a job in a restaurant, I decided to really listen and learn and let's just start there for now, you know. So amongst some of my friends, you know, a lot of times when I started to then work but not as a chef, just as a waiter, basically. So now you're working public holidays and weekends and all of that. But I became committed. You know, I was like, I don't care. I know there's a party. I missed like my best friend's sort of birthday parties. You know, sometimes it's big, sometimes small. But and things got because I knew I had this responsibility now. I had to be committed. Obviously, my mum was also there. She did threaten me at some stage that if you don't stick it out, you know,
it's kind of sticky. But I think we skipped a step there. You went from the construction business to, was it a gradual? Okay, now doen ek weekends by die restaurant by my ma. Because your mother worked in a restaurant, correct?
Yeah, look, I mean, because I grew up and obviously lived in Franschhoek, even through school times, we used to do kind of like casual work in hotels.
Yes.
So you kind of like learn how to be, you're really a waiter. You're not actually somebody that can even speak to the guests, like in, you know.
Die Engels kom maar swaar deur.
Die Engels kom swaar deur.
Yeah.
And, but I think what happened was also in my dad's line of work, sometimes in winter, the work dries up because of the weather. You know? And then my mom just said, look, in town there's an opportunity. She spoke to her boss, and then they gave me a job.
Okay.
So I think I was maybe 3 months. I did make 3 months in the construction business.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 months is just enough
Yeah.
to see how hard that is. My
Yeah.
father was in construction before he started his shop, and he said exactly, he echoed what you just said. It was tough because, and you know, my dad and he's given me a great respect for artisanship and all that, because you look at how things are built and the skill set these people have, right? But it is a very hard job on your body. And 3 months of picking up a 50 kg suck van PPC will tell you a lot.
I had to, and you know, I even, because my dad was a carpenter, and
which was much lighter work
yes, but
than prikkie.
And yet I had a bit of fear of heights, you know.
Scaffolding.
Nou moet jy hier stap op die scaffold, en jy moet, I remember he took me once to, they were building actually a school in Stellenbosch somewhere, and you know, it was quite high up, and I was like, what, you know, and he got me to go all the way up there. I could do nothing really, you know, when I had to like move to get something to pass a hammer on, I'm shaking, you know. I was like, no, this is not what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
So there was like all these little things that kind of just
contributed to
you me taking knowing that this is not I didn't pick up that talent from my dad at all, you know. Not,
so you end up in the restaurant, you're there in the front, and then eventually you get an opportunity into the
so then I started to work as a waiter. I was the only male waiter amongst all these girls, and it might sound fabulous, but it wasn't, you know. I was like this kind of like uncomfortable, kind of big guy, kind of unwieldy in a way, you know, in that position. And also still thinking, this is not like a guy's job. I was going through all of those other things.
Technically just out of being a teen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then I just wasn't good at it because I was too, you know, I'm one of those people that maybe, you know, I don't want to embarrass myself now to speak a language in this setup where I'm, you know, a guest will ask me about, well, so what's the history of Franschhoek? And now I have to find English words to kind of explain that, you know. Yeah. So a lot of those things kind of just made me, no, man, I also don't want to be, I just feel like I wasn't comfortable in that position as a waiter. You know,
you didn't want to
learn a lot there, but also it wasn't overnight. It was like, I think I did that also for quite a couple of months before then I was moved into the kitchen.
Then the lights went on.
I showed some interest in it because that is a side of the job that's also kind of grungy. You know, it's not sort of all.
It's not so pretty there in the kitchen.
It's not pretty and organized, and you know, and there people can kind of like be a bit rough with you in a way. You know, if you don't sort of do something properly, you're gonna hear it.
Van die chef af.
And so then I had to. But I felt like I'm behind the scenes there at least.
Yes.
Give me a task, and I'm learning how to do stuff, which kind of like became fun and interesting for me, you know. And I kind of, my mom said to me, just listen and learn and try and be reliable, you know. Try and just be reliable. People must be able to rely on you, you know. So that was my
such simple, great advice.
Just that,
Just be someone people can depend on.
Exactly. And so my thing was being there, showing up on time. When somebody shows you, do it properly. Ask when you don't know. All those type of things. I think, and because she was there too, you know, she would kind of like, I just feel somebody's pulling me to the side and like giving me a little quick. Because obviously now there's other people also that with maybe that displays, I don't want to say
aspirations to want to be in the kitchen.
But there's like habitual bad habits that you can pick up because you know, see, they're going for a smoke there, and she would pull me back. You know, she would say, "No,
Yeah.
Finish that stuff first
Yeah,
before you
yeah.
go and do anything.
It's such a, like there are these moments, and then you look at your life backwards. When you tell me this, I go, like, there were moments in your life, yeah, where you're actually really fortunate to have a parent there, just also just to look at it from a different perspective, because we all had to walk into jobs where we probably made those mistakes, and people, like, my first job for a company, I know I had to learn the hard way, to be reliable
Yeah.
is being early, doing things correctly. Maar hulle praat net van jou aan die agtergrond. Jy weet nie eers wat jy verkeerd gedoen het nie.
Ja.
Jy word net hoekom jy promotion dan net nie deur nie?
Ja.
En daai goed te gebeur want niemand het vir jou. Nou is daar iemand wie jou kan sê, hey,
Yes.
dis wat jy verkeerd doen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I maybe had a knack for this type of thing, and remember, there's like being reliable is, yes, you show up, you do the job that you're given. And we obviously have, like in any job, there's timelines to everything. So you have to have it ready in a certain time. You can't also be slow.
Ja.
And
Restaurant, mense wag vir hulle kos.
if you cut your finger, don't expect sympathy from anybody. People are like, oh no, man, really?
Yeah,
Now you messed up the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just go and
Sort yourself out.
sort yourself out. That's also, so you have to, there's a lot of these things that you must learn. There's no sympathy, don't expect that from people.
Yeah. A kitchen is from what I've picked up from just, nowadays there are TV shows that sort of show being a chef behind the scenes as quite, like you said, a grungy job, but it's quite a tough environment. It's eintlik baie, it's not for the faint of heart,
Yes. That's why people must find the creative, kind of like arty part of that, and then you can say to yourself, I'm sacrificing all of this stuff for, I don't want to say art, because I mean,
There is an artist there,
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
But that's what then starts to happen.
Yeah.
You kind of like sacrifice just time and
Yeah.
a lot. Whether it's the outside time with your family or your friends or whatever, you're doing all this sacrificing just for your art in a way.
Yes.
And a lot of chefs have to. They have to find something to grab onto.
Yes.
To give them a reason why they're doing that. It's not always about just pleasing people and cooking good. It's kind of like trying to do things properly, and
Yes.
and obviously over the years with social media, these things have become even more like that.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're part of a group of people. I'm sort of part of like this world of chefs.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so what's fascinating to me is, so you basically then self-taught, and then you have mentorship. That's how does a chef grow into, the Reuben Riffels of the world? Because, I mean, if you, kyk, as jy 'n skool nie, daar's nie, okay, hier's die curriculum nie. Jy weet nie hoe om sê nou maar 'n Norwegian salmon medium rare te maak nie. You know what I mean? Ek het dit nou die ander dag eers uitgevind dat jy 'n vis medium rare kan maak. Maar so like, how does a chef grow into that? Is it it's got to do with the chef, right?
Yes.
Are you willing to put yourself in the line of fire to grow? And is there other chefs taking you by the hand?
I think again, going back to, maybe that advice my mum gave me, and where, the most amazing thing is the discovery of yourself, discovering what you're actually good at. Okay. That is a massive discovery. If you are put in a situation where, and that you don't discover that just because now, I've got a perspective on myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually good at this, because that can also kind of be misleading.
Yeah.
It's more that kind of validation from the outside where people keep on saying this to you, and like early on, and then that was when that kind of dawned on me. Then I was like, it was a discovery where I feel like I'm worth more than just what I've kind of like got to know about myself.
Yeah.
I discovered things about myself,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
when I discovered those things about myself, it's like a whole new world opened up for me, you know,
Yeah.
and then because of that, then I became even more committed. And I was like, I wanted to learn more,
Yeah.
whether it was from other people. And listen, those were also the days where you couldn't just go onto the internet. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't as sort of
That was
accessible today.
in 1998. You couldn't go
Yeah.
onto Instagram and
No,
go
no, no,
look at things, or
no.
YouTube wasn't that popular.
No, listen,
Yeah.
and I mean, I remember even like the first Asian restaurant, because like we didn't know sushi wasn't sort of like
It wasn't a thing.
prevalent as it is
Now it's everywhere, but it wasn't a thing. Yeah.
I remember we came to Cape Town. There was a restaurant here called Tokyo, and it was one of the only places, I would say, that was serving sushi, and they were serving it authentically. So you sat on on a carpet or on the floor, and you ate it like that almost, you know. And then you discover those type of flavors, things that I didn't know existed in a way, you know.
Yeah.
So there was like a massive, the learning curve were like really sort of steep, you know, and what happened to me, for example, was, you know, just again, you know, I can go past this quickly because I did rebel against sort of like that hard work, and because sometimes maybe a personality clashes with you in a certain sort of, I mean,
Space,
you know, that can also happen.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, but listen, I'm working hard here already, and I'm being so committed. But now you're still giving me, giving me hassle here. You know? And then I just said, I'm gonna give it up. You know. So I left that job for like 2 months, and then I got pulled back because obviously with my mom, and I lost my way a little bit at some stage.
Yeah.
And
Maar
then,
was kort man, 2 maanden is gauw.
yeah, it was short. Luckily, I found it quick. She could see the quick decline there. You know, this guy still, he needs some direction. And then, you know, the same restaurant, they called me back. They said, look, come, you know, you had your time, now come back, and then we still need you. And then they pulled me back.
Yeah.
And many, you know, things happened like this where people whisper stuff in my ear, and I'm like this. I'm selective to which advice I'm gonna be taking. I don't know where that came from.
It's
you know, because people sometimes are very generous with advice.
Oh yeah, people love to give advice.
people love to give advice, and I guess I had a bit of my own strong will, even though I was quite, I would say, reserved, and I was an introvert, you know, I didn't want to, but people were like, I'm listening to this, I'm reading this somewhere, and I'm overhearing a conversation there. And then that establishment where I was working at that stage, were going through a lot of changes, and I just kind of like stayed put in my position, and all of a sudden I was sort of like fast-tracked to the head of the kitchen. Which was
within a short period.
Yes, and the reality of that is, even though I weren't ready for it, I was naive enough to take it on, you know.
Yeah. So, what a blessing, youth.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, man. I mean,
it's not Zani, bro.
I saw how I can do that.
Yeah.
And then
it worked. It worked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it worked out, but at the same time, you then in a position where now you learn, you now know, okay, it's not just cooking, it's the management of this whole team of people, the ordering of things, and
are we getting the best produce kind of thing?
You know, your relationship with your suppliers, your relationship with the boss, with the people in front, with your guests.
Yeah, because they want to thank the chef. You're coming out from the back.
Yeah. And then you learn, oh, shit, but it's not that easy.
Yeah.
You know, and then you also make mistakes along the way.
Of course.
So that's kind of like adding to my steep learning curve at that stage, you know. And obviously at no stage was I was thinking of becoming like a famous chef. There was not. I was just wanting to get into a position where I felt like I'm learning, and wow, I'm earning some nice money here.
Yeah.
I can maybe think about buying myself a nice car, or
Yeah,
those
yeah.
were like
Yeah,
low hanging. Those
Yeah.
were there was no grand plans to become
Yes.
like a well-known chef or anything like that.
That is, it's fascinating. I go, oh, so now where do you go from? By the way, you cold, maar ek didn't afswitch.
Nee, asseblief, ek kry nooit koud nie.
Okay. So, do you, waar gaan het van, okay, jy's nou die chef, to, where's that first celebrity pulling you into a different world
Yeah.
moment?
So
Does the restaurants come first, or does the, this is a special chef come first?
well, I think it's if you like where we are, like as a chef, if you either produce, you're just on production, or you're on a side where you are actually free to create. And as soon as you get there and you can combine that with production and running a good show, then you become a well-known chef. You become, that's obviously attached to the brand of the restaurant.
Yes.
I mean, those things you can't distinguish between the two. I mean,
Yeah.
they go hand in hand.
Does the PR also, like the restaurant's PR is important?
Obviously, that type of stuff.
So
kind
now
of-
they go, our chef is XYZ.
yeah, but you see now that becomes easy because
Yeah.
that you can just say.
Yes, yes.
But you know yourself, word of mouth actually means a lot more. But today we just don't know anymore, unless a friend tells you that you trust. Because we live in this world where
Yeah.
information,
Yeah. Yeah.
whether
it's
it's
freely
misinformation
accessible. Yeah.
I can't think even back in those days, PR was like, it was done that much. It was obviously done through the magazines that we had back in those days. And
Eat
I even remember, I don't know if you remember, there was a DJ that we listened to, and it was Good Hope FM.
Okay.
And I was at that stage working at that same restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was like Dimitri Jagels and these
Okay,
type of guys
yeah.
that came there for Sunday lunch, and
Yeah.
because I mean that's well-known people come.
Yeah,
to
celebrities
restaurants,
are
so I was
op tafel vier.
I was like, wow, I'm meeting big celebrities here
Yeah.
now, And at that stage, Sundays we were doing buffets. I think those are all the kind of small little elements that you start to think, geez,
Things are starting
these
to
are
bubble.
people that support these type of things, and
Yeah.
so it makes you kind of like feel you're closer to a special. You're in an industry that's kind of like close to some special people or things like happen. I don't know how to describe
Yes.
that.
Nee,
completely,
absolutely. You starting, jy's in 'n wendelbaan.
Yes.
Jy's in 'n kyk, ons is nie nou net in 'n burger jointie.
Ja.
Daar by tafel 4
Yes.
is die president van daai radiostasie.
Yes.
And then there's a certain amount of people start to gravitate this
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
And then is obviously it's word of mouth. I mean, it's
Yes.
you're now building a reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also there wasn't that many places back
Yes.
then,
Uh,
So then I also went through that stage where now I'm from Franschhoek, Groendal, and yes, man, I mean, there must be more to the world than just this place. The owner of that restaurant where I started, like a really tough German guy, very wealthy. Yeah, I'm sitting. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in a private jet. He's sitting there. I'm obviously now not privileged to be sitting up front in the plane, but it's only the two of us.
wild.
I'm sitting here in
it's
the
a
back.
private jet. Let's just stop there.
Yeah. And we're flying to this island here off, I think it's off the coast of Angola, somewhere there, but it's called Sao Tome Islands.
Okay.
Portuguese islands.
Okay.
So he must, or somebody must have said to him, listen, we could lose this guy. Let's take him and shown
Try
some
and-
other stuff that you guys are doing and all of that. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I am. I remember we landed. He gave me a $20 bill, and he said, we'll see you when we head back," because then he went on his business and all sorts of things that he was doing. And I was just left with, he had resorts on the island, so I was left with those guys, meeting chefs and lots of Filipino chefs and Portuguese chefs, so doing that
Okay.
type of food.
When is this now? 90s?
This was, in the late 90s, kind
Yeah.
of around that time.
Okay.
But yeah, I was like, what was I? Probably 19, 20, maybe around that time.
Still a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, there was like a new experience for me.
We gaan oop.
Yeah. First time on an aeroplane, first time going
First
to any
time
country.
private.
Yeah, flying private.
Wow.
So it was, and then I came back and, I think I did one more season there. Then at that stage, they realized that I just
Needed
didn't
more.
have enough experience to carry this place.
Okay.
And then the place changed a little bit. They got different chefs in, and then I saw that as my opportunity to then go. I worked a little bit in Durban. Didn't last long. Worked here in the waterfront. It's like a whole new world too, because it's different to what I was used to. And then, like many times it's happened in my career, you end up going back and working with the same people that you kind of met along the way. And these are like, again, another lesson for me. It's over in my life. It's always, I don't burn bridges with anybody. Even if we split up, I try and do it in an amicable way. And even when I left my first job, I did it in a way where I felt like, we understood each other. And so it happens a lot where then I reconnect with people I used to work with before. So then again, I went to work with a chef that I trained with initially. He was the head chef, executive chef, and then I went, also still back in Franschhoek. He got me there, but his idea was to get me there and then to take the road.
Okay.
And then I got that. I'll fast track these. Because
So now you're back in
I'm back in Franschhoek after doing Durban,
all of the stuff.
Yeah.
So you're back in Franschhoek now, and then you now when does Reuben start? When does
So Reuben starts after now. I went back to Franschhoek. This restaurant, then the first time where I was now running the kitchen, where we got like an award, which was at that stage almost like Eat Out is now.
Yeah.
We were listed in the top 10 in South Africa. This
Yeah.
was after, because that chef that I was working with had quite a profile, and then I then took over from him, and then we then also got the award the next year. And then people started to notice you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
from the outside.
Yeah.
And then in town, the town started to grow in terms of more and more new wine farms, and places were bought over, and money was invested. A few new restaurants started to open. Those started to sort of, you could see it. It was sprouting, and it was getting bigger now. And there was one guy there. They started a new wine farm, and they were quite like new and different. And I used to do a lot of events for him at his farm. And he used to come and have, at that stage, I would say people were looking at our restaurant where they were like maybe one of the better ones in Franschhoek.
Yes. And the name at that time?
It was at it was called Mono, and it was...
Yes.
And it was at the Franschhoek Country House, where then
Yes.
I was the head chef, and I was working with my sister.
So that was the same restaurant.
The first one was Chamonix.
Chamonix. Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay. But
It
your
was on that
sister's
wine
there.
farm. So now my sister's at this
Is she
place.
also a chef, or is she?
She's a friend of ours. My aunt.
Hele familie is hier nou.
Yeah, my aunt was sort of... she also worked in restaurants all her life. And then so she was there as our pastry chef. Kind of like the grown-up in the kitchen. Not me. I was still a youngster at that stage. And so it was like that type of thing. And it was... You know how it works in kitchens? You especially if you're the head chef, you kind of take over. You continue with the menu of the chef from before, and then it was the first place where I started to feel like I can sort of infuse some of my mum's food or my own
influence
stuff I can put in there. It was like that was the first
Let's
place I
change
started
this.
to do that.
Okay. Well, there's a level of confidence the owners and the stuff have to have in you.
Yeah,
if you can't come, nee man, ons gooi die sago pudding hier in.
Yeah. And I want to add this too, because there's always a thing in our industry where people talk about creativity, and I have to say, the things I learned was through books that sometimes I copied, and then I found out how the flavor was, and then I started to add my own thing to it.
Okay.
It wasn't all that came from
your imagination.
My own imagination.
Yes.
There were things that I didn't know that could go together, and then I copied it from a French cookbook or like some famous chef from.
That's a very nice point you make,
yes.
because we go. Kom jy net met die ding, oh nee, this thing needs... You see it, and because we always watch TV, and then we go, oh no, this needs vinegar. It's like, hoe jy geweet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't knock people that can be creative without having that, but where's the baseline, in terms of knowing what can go together and how then to add to it, and maybe, that's why there's certain things that stood the test of time, flavor combinations, but it's almost like in nature, those things immediately works on our palates.
Yeah.
Like a tomato and a basil, or, yes, I like it with mint, but the one with basil always works better for me.
Yes.
There's like classic combinations, but then you can start adding to those things, for example.
Yeah.
So I was researching a hell of a lot, I started to follow, because Asian flavors were like just kind of things that I was interested in because I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so I went a lot into that, following restaurants in the US, Australia.
Did you ever go and is part of your research? Okay, there's the cookbooks.
Yeah.
Is there still today? Is there I'm gonna go eat there because I heard it's interesting?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do it less now than I did before, but it's only because I'm going through this stage of where I've got kids, and I enjoy doing it with them now,
Yeah.
But to travel overseas becomes a bit more expensive.
Very.
So when I go on my own, I do it. But I think that's then where this guy saw me. I was working at this Mono place for a long time, and then had this longing to go overseas. And I started to get a lot of offers for jobs overseas.
Okay. Which countries?
Well, interestingly enough, there was one to go and work in the Middle East in Oman, for example.
Okay.
I went to the waterfront, had an interview with a guy. I again don't know where I got this guts from, because in interviews where people try and it's almost like because now you're coming for a job, and I was slightly unsure whether I wanted to go, but he was kind of like talking to me in a condescending way, you know.
Talking down to you.
Yes, and then I just pushed back to him, I just started to say, I became cocky in a way, you know. And then I left the room. It took 2 hours, and the agent called to say, no, when can you start?
Yeah.
I'm like,
what they can't have.
I was like, geez, man, I thought I became cocky with this guy. He's not going to offer me a job, and I actually don't want to work for him. And then I just said, no, I'm not working for people like that.
Sometimes the honesty comes out of you.
Yeah, I think
Be
so.
in those moments where you go, I've got nothing to lose, let me tell you.
Yeah.
This is what's wrong, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of like, my answers were in a way where I kind of like almost answered it in a way to make him understand that you're asking me stupid questions here.
Yeah.
That was kind of my way of responding to him.
Yeah. And
then,
did you go?
No, then at that same time, I had an opportunity to go to the UK, and then I ended up going to the UK.
Yeah.
I went to work in Cambridge, and I'm trying to fast track not to make it sound like it's too... but now I'm in Cambridge. I just want to add this.
Yes, please.
These people promised us it's going to be like this, and then you get there. My girlfriend at that stage, now my wife, she went with.
Yes.
and got there, and it was a construction site.
Huh?
You know. Then I was like
So the
disappointed.
restaurant didn't even exist yet.
It used to be, they owned the space, but it used to be another restaurant, and then they in their minds they thought, okay, we can do a quick sort of refurb and then we can go. But then when I got there, the refurb took longer, and then they also said to me, look, but we can't really pay you what we promised you yet. And it was that type of thing. So then I went through this kind of quick calculation of going back, or, you know, because it's not like I can say I'm here, I can find another job, because now
Yeah.
your visa has
It's
got some
limited
restrictions to that.
Yeah.
And then my 3-month construction sort of experience kicked in, and I
Yeah.
thought, okay, I'm going to jump in and just
Fix this restaurant.
help these guys. And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. I basically got my hands dirty. I started to work with a small team, and then it took us about a month and a half to finish it, and then I started to focus on the kitchen. That's basically how we set up that place.
Listen, there's right, you're brushing over something that is extremely. Jy het gesê, hey, kyk, bring hy troffel.
Yeah.
And then the relationship with the owners, I hope that they saw the, like,
No,
they were very happy, obviously.
Look, this was a old guy. He had family in South Africa. His wife was American. They've never had a restaurant before. You know, this for them was like just
Trying out a hobby.
let's try this thing. And
Yeah.
I knew they weren't
Very
gonna
expensive way to try a
exactly,
hobby.
and I knew also they weren't going to be able to sort of be able to work in there.
Yeah.
And at the same time, in their minds, they had no idea even what type of restaurant they wanted. You know, so
Yeah.
it really became a place where I
Yeah.
was just sort of, it was all on me and my girlfriend, and there was some chefs that then I called up, people that used to work with me in other places, and they were over there at the same time. You know, some of them were students at that stage when I worked with them in South Africa.
Yes,
so I
yes.
just called all of them, and we were like this kind of motley crew of South Africans, Chinese, Venezuelans, Polish people,
There's a
and a
movie.
few Brits.
This
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like something from a movie.
Yeah.
And then in the end, it works out.
Yeah, I mean, the owner, I soon realized, he was like, this is a student town, we must do food for students. And then I pushed back. I said, I'm not here to cook food for students. You know, if they want good food and they're willing to pay for it, we are cooking food for the professionals and
Yeah.
people that come to Cambridge. Even though the street was like an offbeat, it wasn't sort of the fancy street.
Yeah.
So I said to him, it's quite nice that people want that. They want to travel outside of the usual sort of center of town to go to these type of places. So
It's
we're going to
novel,
be that
yeah.
place, you know.
Yes. It's novel.
It's novel, exactly.
It's in the student town. Everyone is selling hamburgers and you selling
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
nice things. Yeah.
You know, the beauty of it, I still fondly remember when now I'm dealing with suppliers and, you know, such nice sort of proud people of their
Yeah.
you know, the stuff that they grow or the stuff that they sell, and whether it's truffles. It sounds like it wasn't that type of restaurant, but they would supply me with mushrooms, and then there's a black truffle in there, you know, those type of things.
Wow.
Or a guy would show up supplying me with wild ducks that was just sort of, the season was like maybe 3 weeks where they're there, and he shoots them,
Yeah.
and they're like that size, and they kind of like the meat's like almost like a red meat
Yes.
outside of like how we
Yes. Yeah.
have our ducks.
Good,
here,
that's-
you know.
yeah.
So I had those experiences there. I was cooking with things like pheasant and partridge and things that I've never cooked before. So I was on this like really learning journey of
Yeah.
cooking with new ingredients, but now obviously infusing a bit of Cape Malay in there, here and there, and that was the fun thing about it. And then
Yeah.
also because I had Venezuelans working there and I had Chinese guys working there, I would say, you know, what do you guys like, star food? And then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this tastes nice. Let's incorporate it here. It was really fun, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and then I did that for 2 years, and then went really well. You know, for me, a restaurant goes through stages, so it goes through a stage where there's the novelty of the fact that it's new and everyone's coming, and then where sometimes in terms of your creativity you can get a bit stuck, and then it becomes monotonous until you find your groove again. And then I felt we kind of like in those 2 years we went through a few of those stages, because it's also the staff changes. Those people are not there forever. Some of them are just there because they're studying English and then they're gone. We were on like a really great trajectory. I mean, the people that came there was like, you could see, I mean, all of a sudden some of the hotels were sending us people that never used to do that before.
Yeah.
But then I was offered to come back to South Africa to open my own restaurant. That's basically, after now making a few waves on that side.
Yeah.
The people that I knew back in South Africa, the people that were my customers, they then came to me and offered me something like crazy. I was like, what? I remember this guy, he came, he said to me, and I've got this idea. We're going to put an aeroplane wing in, as our bar counter. That's going to be like, we're going to have a bar. And, oh, by the way, we're going to call it Reuben's. I said to him, no, I don't want to put my name on a restaurant. I mean, why would I want to go and do that?
Yeah.
Back in Franschhoek, by the way, not sort of.
What a thing.
Yeah.
Because your name and lights outside, there's an ownership to it.
Yes.
It's a brand exercise.
Yes. And
not a lot of chefs get that.
No, you see, and I was like, I fought against it a little bit. And so at that stage, it's making a decision, going back home or enjoying what we enjoyed there. Traveling in Europe was easy. We were doing new things. But then, I listened to my gut a lot. I kind of like trust my gut. And then once I do that, I really sort of, I commit, and then I go.
Yeah.
And so when I decided I'm going to come, again, we went back. We made that commitment without, it was, we knew that the restaurant wasn't going to be finished when we go back. We were part of the whole thing from the word go, from the planning stages, so that was kind of fun, it was.
Yeah, because you can now, the way it looks, you also, you can start from how the napkin looks.
Yes. So from
it's yours. Your decisions are being considered.
And remember, also at that stage, we were trying to do a place that wasn't sort of picking up on the French heritage of the town. We tried to move away from that.
Yeah.
The idea was to bring something more eclectic and not just the focus on French, because before that, their menus were written in sort of like a kind of French
fancy vibes,
the same font and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we wanted to be something more modern. I remember, outside of the aeroplane wing, the candle holders came from Sweden. The soap in the bathrooms were sort of molten brown, which was at that stage also
very
new
nice.
And really nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of those kind of details that was completely new for the town at that stage.
Okay. And that's a different building from the Reuben's now.
That's a whole nother long story that we can talk about. But,
that's why you're here. That's the beauty of not having a time limit.
Yeah.
If you have the time, we have the time.
But it was such an exciting project to kind of like do that. I remember when we opened, for example, the mayor came, my grandmother came, like my parents came.
That's a moment, eh?
And these are things that you don't. It was almost like too big to kind of for me to
feel in the moment.
Yeah.
You cannot know full years later.
Yeah. It was like just too big because remember at that stage too, I mean, even now if I look back, I kind of would have expected things to evolve better for even my like people that came after me. if I can
Yeah.
put it in that way.
Yeah.
It hasn't. So
Yeah.
I realize even more how different that time was maybe, and how my path has been. I don't even know. When I speak to young chefs today, I'm trying to
Yeah.
to guide them, but I also say to them, there's no blueprint for these things.
That's-
there is no blueprint.
From what I'm hearing, yes. Like when
Yes.
you say your gut has served you well,
Yes.
your work ethic has served you well, your enjoyment of the thing has served you well, but there's no way of predicting you're gonna have to help fix the restaurant there.
No.
It's an
Think
how
about-
do you? There's no ABC there.
Think about in life, in careers, and where you have to make all these little micro decisions, sometimes big, sometimes small. But those are the things. Those are
Massive moments.
massive moments where you go one way or the other way, and it could mean a different outcome completely.
I've had that experience. There's a camera over there that I sold a PlayStation and an older camera and a few things for in the early days, and said, I'm going to start vlogging. And I walked in the door and my father looked at me like I was crazy. You have a family, you've got a wife. My wife looked a little bit like I was crazy. The industry looked like me like I was crazy. And now everyone's got a camera now.
Yeah.
And then there's just this, it's a silly thing that you just like, it's an idea feeling.
Yes.
And then it changes the way your
Completely.
career goes completely. Yeah.
Don't you? For me, this is what I always say also, whether it's in my own business or in my life, I say you cannot allow circumstances outside of your business or your life to control your life. You have to take control of your life. I know that sounds like maybe something you say to somebody that maybe has some affliction, or that's maybe an alcoholic, or maybe a younger person. But in terms of a restaurant, a business like that, I would say let's make plans to say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing, and then we go for those plans. Instead of saying, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Maybe the tourism season's going to be busy, or maybe this time winter will be like this. You have to, and again, making a plan and sort of implementing it. Those are also two different things.
Yes.
And in my life, it's the same thing. It's not like I've got New Year's resolutions, but I kind of like feeling the new year. It's a clean slate. Let's kind of like have some different ideas. Let's try this and let's try that.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I have control of my own life and where I'm going to go. And that doesn't mean that I'm also not flexible and open to other opportunities that's going to come.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be led by somebody else.
A lot of what you say resonates with me. A lot of that stuff, because I go, it's, for example, a restaurant. Reuben's now is a destination. You can, if you just spoke about seasonality, like, okay, somer nou gaan ons, but, and I tell people in our industry, I just spoke to Rob van Vieren yesterday, and we spoke about, there's a moment in a lot of entrepreneurs' minds where it clicks. We know it, but it doesn't really hit you until you go, I've got to create the demand.
Yes.
I've got to create the demand. Forget the season, forget what the industry is telling me to do, forget what people's ideas are. I am going to create something they don't know yet, but they're going to love it. And then there's so now, who would have thought, in winter, we come into Reuben's. The first time I was at your restaurant was in the dead of winter with my wife, had a great time. And we went there, and one of the priorities was that I would go to this restaurant because everyone's been telling me about it. You create that, you create that demand.
Yeah.
And if you don't, what happens that winter season? People sort of come to your restaurant,
Yes.
and people lose jobs and things go under, and then,
Look, and also, I want to make it clear also that we all, sometimes I decide on doing something and it doesn't work out.
Yes.
And then I'm quick to sort of understand, have I given it everything? Did we sort of approach it the proper way? Is it not working? And if it's not working, can we cut it?
Yeah.
I'm there too. This is all part of that whole journey.
Yes.
where-
Pivot.
Yes.
Hey, I thought this was going to be the big thing. Maybe I shouldn't have bought
Yes.
500 tons of
Yeah,
tomatoes.
exactly.
Cancel the
Exactly.
order. Let's mitigate loss. Let's do
Yes.
something else. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so today now you have how many restaurants how many restaurants are you involved in?
So, look, we've opened and closed a few. You know, like the big thing was obviously when I was at the One and Only at that stage. That was quite a big thing. In 2010, when we started that, we were there for 9 years. The whole world obviously went through COVID, so then we finished there. And we were also in Joburg pre-COVID. We had a place there, closed that.
Yes.
So now I have 4 restaurants.
Yeah.
Last year we also got involved in a place in Mauritius where we, I've gone there for a bit of holiday sometimes. I've done some events there, and then last year we opened a restaurant with them on one of the resorts.
Yes.
Called Sugar Beach.
Yeah.
I was actually I was supposed to go there. That's why I told you, we were talking about the times. But then I'm only going to go next month now.
Okay.
So we have 4, and then we are planning to do 2 more but of various sizes in the next sort of like year.
Okay. It's a big year.
Yeah, I'm kind of, the one side is we have, I've had this is maybe something I sat for on too long, where I wanted to kind of like do a novelty thing around South African, like a wild concept of what is wild still considered in South Africa, from a seafood and a meat point of view, and then but only use the fire to prepare those type of things. I have a novel. It's a bit novel.
Yes.
But I think it's got legs, and we've set it up, and we just need to kind of fine tune it a little bit. Something I want to do now, and then also
everything on a grill.
Everything coming off the fire. Cooked over the fire.
Way more difficult to control temperature.
Way more difficult, but also it kind of like makes it fun too, because some obviously wild meat doesn't have a lot of fat content, so you kind of like either have to bring that in, and it's not braaiing, because braaiing in a way is obviously where something has to, I would say braai for me is not just the act of cooking meat over the fire. For me, it's the whole concept, the people coming together, that's more all of that type of stuff, and sometimes slow getting the smokiness into the chicken or the lamb chops and whatever. Where this is more like using the fire, but it's a quicker way of cooking. You have to work it out where, let's say I'm cooking springbuck over the fire. It's not going to be on there for 10 minutes. It's like quick.
Yeah.
And think about like if you cook like really nice calamari, and it's just sort of like hits the fire, and it gets that smokiness, and it gets a bit of maybe some garlic and olive oil and some herbs over there, just like, and chili.
Yeah.
That it doesn't even need a lot more, So it's a bit more difficult, but I think it's a primal thing that we kind of like appreciate more, without us knowing it.
Absolutely fascinated by that idea that what you're talking about, like all fire. I like because there is a primal nature to it, and there's a beauty to it.
Yeah.
Like there's a. But so there's 2 things I wanted to ask you before you spoke about Mauritius. Now, I am not like food. I love to eat food, but I'm not refined in any sort of a way. But when I was there once, and I found that things were sweeter. Sometimes certain countries you go to, there's definitely like a palate. Like Mauritius, I found things were a lot of sweet stuff, or maybe it was just the places I went.
Yeah.
Like, hoekom is die goed so soet, man? Alles aan soet, die bacon is soet, alles is soet. And then you'll go to countries like, we were fortunate enough now to go to the Netherlands, where you go, yes, young. It's so different here. And you think about South Africa, and you go to, I don't want to knock the Netherlands, but I'm talking about like Europe and the States. And when you come back to South Africa, there's one thing I have picked up. We are very spoiled for the produce we get. Because I go, wat jy gehoor as jy betaal vir 'n patty? You know what I mean? Like, and it's not, people will rave about a place. And nowadays, and this is something maybe we could talk about as well, We found places with Instagram. My wife and I will go, okay, top 10 places, die influencer kies wat gaan nou na hierdie eierplek toe and places, and this is, then you'll go and you go, you have high expectations now. You get there, you go, hi, my guy. In South Africa, we are spoiled, eh?
No.
Because almost every time I go, there are places that are wild. It's so much better. I go like, I went to a steakhouse. I was at a for a business thing in Europe, and these people took me to this wonderful place, and I obviously and it was nice. But then I go like, there's we take the grill house for granted in South Africa sometimes, but you can walk into most steakhouses and get a better meal.
Yeah, we don't know.
For cheap compared to what they're doing.
People don't understand how spoiled we are here. And actually, it goes to our ingredients, like you said there now.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that we, even here in Cape Town, the fact that we can still get like really fresh fish, for example, for relatively inexpensive prices. Obviously not everything, but we are still close to really great quality fresh produce. I'm saying close to where it's accessible to
the average
person. Guy still, you know, where that's not the same. I remember even back in those days when I went to the UK, when now you're in the supermarkets and you're checking out, it's maybe better now, but the meat quality wasn't great. Like in other countries, when you eat the fruit, for example, I love when I travel to eat the fruit that's in season. That's kind of like maybe how I grew up. Mostly disappointed, you know, unless I'm like in a like in Mauritius when it's like lychee season or mango season. Then I mean, obviously it's delicious, but you know, we are blessed,
very blessed. I find that we're very blessed in those kinds of things, and that makes a very big difference in how you're able to put a restaurant together, right?
Yes. Look, I think now you can imagine, I mean, the amount of restaurants that we have now. You know, back in the day, a lot of our produce were imported stuff. I'm talking olive oil. The basic things. A lot of those things were imported. Okay. A lot of our, obviously when you go to sort of Parma ham and, we have local ones, but back then, nobody were making it back here, for example. Our quality of cheeses over the time, you know. So we can talk about, there's great restaurants. Nobody can open a restaurant if you don't have access to good quality ingredients.
Yes.
And also we do go through phases. Like I would say now, when it comes to authentic restaurants, I mean, now we're starting to see a lot more of that again, you know, where it's authentic. If it's Vietnamese, it's people that's actually been to Vietnam or maybe they come from there, and the food is really authentic and they can get all those ingredients to be able to give that to us.
Yes.
We are so spoiled, you know.
Absolutely.
So that's why, you know, I'm like, it's amazing. I was speaking to an older gentleman from the UK the other day, you know, where this guy was saying, he was moaning about the UK, you know, and he's planning to buy a house here and come to South Africa. And I'm always thinking, this is a weird world. Eh? If people can, there's such negativity also about our country. And I mean, in some cases we can agree to a lot of those things, but yet some people, if they view their own country in comparison to ours, they, you know, all this thing about being dangerous and those things, they just, we don't see
small sacrifice.
Exactly.
To have a great meal.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you make of, but just to tie a knot on that thing, when your family comes over and you have your name on the building, I mean, there's a lot of pride, eh?
Yeah, listen, my dad, my parents obviously were super proud. My family, even today, they'll still, you know, when I see some of them. But for me, it's like, obviously, I mean, it's not just pride, but it's also a pressure.
It's a lot of pressure.
You know?
I can imagine.
Because I've got to kind of live up to that. And I think that's probably one of the things I also say today and to other young chefs. For me, it's, I took it on. I took it on and I kind of like worked it in a way where I didn't get a big head and I didn't sort of like get ahead of myself because I wanted to, my success, I wanted to be the longevity of my business, of my business.
Yes.
And my brand. I
Yeah.
didn't want it to just sort of me doing what people are expecting of me to do. I wanted to, we've been going for 21 years now, and we're still
2
going, still
decades
doing new
plus.
things.
Yeah.
So I had to put things in place to also secure my sort of, I would say, legacy in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Part of why I then moved later my restaurant was because I felt I needed to own the property. I
Yeah.
can't just be this brand that's attached to places, but I don't really own any of these things.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
that I say ownership is everything, but you need to have,
No,
you need
absolutely.
to have some of, you need to have some.
I 100%.
Yeah.
I get it. That
Yeah.
I would get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is also obviously listening to people and being selective in terms of what advice you take. But then I decided that's super important. This is my base. At that stage, early on when I was younger, I wanted to be outside and everywhere. I see it's better for me to be closer to where my restaurants are. It never worked for me to have places all over the place and flying here, there, everywhere. Maybe I'm better suited now. I'm better in a better position now, I suppose. But I think we've made the right moves in terms of. I mean, now where the restaurant is now, for example.
Yeah.
I met a lady when I was still at the One and Only, and so she did a painting of my grandfather. I just had an idea where I felt I wanted to have something that's, it's not just a painting on a wall. It's there's some significance to it. So, and it wasn't even aimed at my customers. It was aimed at family that comes there. When they see that they can feel that it's not just Reuben, because Reuben's is now a name that it's just a name, and but they walk in there and there's a pride for them, where they see this is our grandfather, this is our great grandfather, and so I get when they come to Franschhoek, some of them that's not in that live there, when they come there and they come to the restaurant or maybe show their friends and they can see that's my grandfather on the wall there.
Absolutely. There's such a great sense of pride and like you remember the people that got you here kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. And isn't that the beauty of for us, where we can go wherever in the world, but we cannot lose that connection with where we come from, and I try and have that connection. I sometimes with my kids, I find it's becoming more and more difficult, especially for people that's not, my mom and my dad's not with us anymore. So I want to keep that connection. Yeah. And so that's why through my books, I try and say these words and I try and sort of like have that connection there. So my kids, even though, because kids are kids, so later on they'll pick it up again and they can sort of like have that same sort of feeling.
Do you because you live in Franschhoek, do you make, because it's down the road.
Yeah.
You grew up down the road.
Yeah.
Do you still have family living out there? Do the kids still have that connection with him?
Yes.
Because for me, like this week, it's my kid's birthday. We're getting in the car, ons gaan Ankie toe.
Yeah.
And he has the time of his life there. Because it represents something completely different to him again.
Yes.
But at least he can sort of have something in his mind's eye. I think someone's phone is probably mine. Is it mine? Switch it off. Thank you, sir. So somewhere that there's a connection to it. Like, so he goes back, he enjoys it, but I can at least see, man, kykie, dis waar my pa vandaan afkom.
It's not easy though, because like my boy came to me, Max, he came to me, he said to me, Papa, I want to get to know more of my family, because now people are scattered. It's not like
Yeah.
we don't
Allemaal
sort of we
trek.
don't go to places anymore. So then we'll see each other at big events like birthdays or funerals and things like
Christmas,
that.
I like it, yeah.
And look, it's a process too, because my wife doesn't. She then comes from another town, for example. But I love, where these young people, now they didn't know each other from when they were little now.
Yeah.
Because some of them are in the UK, some of them are elsewhere. And, I saw the
wild.
other day now they wanted to get to know each other, but now you introduce them and now people are looking around as if, okay.
Nope.
But that's fine,
Yeah.
At least
Be awkward
it's
together.
a funny thing, because the only place where they feel where they really connect and talk is on social media.
Yes, because
that's a
it's
weird thing where
easier
it's
for them
easier.
to connect. Like I've got cousins that are they're only close on they play PlayStation together from different cities.
Yes, exactly.
It's wild, eh?
Yeah, but when they with each other, then it's a bit awkward.
Weet jy wat om te doen met mekaar nie?
Wat gaan ons nou met mekaar praat?
Yeah. And so say for my, what do you make of the, like, there's been you in obviously fine dining, but what do you make of all these, especially in Cape Town? I find that in Cape Town, there's so many new restaurant ideas that are popping up. What do you make of the food truck revolutions you're seeing now, where people are, I've got friends that have made a whole livelihood just going from, I work on a dredger to I sell pancakes out of a truck. And this is my passion. Yeah. And in Cape Town is the first place where you go. I went to Lansdowne one day and there was the best little burger spot. So like, what do you make of, and where do you think this comes from? Do you attribute it to, because I see it in other countries as well. Food trucks are all the rage. And it's not going away. It doesn't seem like it's going away. What do you make of, why do you think the culture in food is so strong in Cape Town specifically? Because I see it other places in South Africa, but in Cape Town, it's very strong. It's markets on a Sunday.
Yes.
It's,
Listen, I would say the food business, it's maybe easier, obviously, to get into. But at the same time, I think it really gets you like really deep. Okay, so other people are very much more business minded, and their approach is a colder approach. We're gonna do, but if you do that very seldom, you really get the enjoyment of preparing these things, and then also seeing it sort of blossom and being successful. Because I'm sure you've experienced it where you've prepared something for somebody and they were like, wow, that's amazing. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
yeah.
a gift, like...
You feel very proud.
Yes,
You're
proud.
chuffed by your
Yes.
koolbrady wat mooi uitgekom het.
Exactly. People can say whatever they like.
Tom doodgegooi met die sojasaus, maar kyk.
And because when you say nothing,
oh,
dan weet jy, okay.
nee, dit gaan nie lekker geloop nie.
So I think that's part of it. But people, again, going back to what people study, sometimes they've studied completely different things. I've had many of those people working with me too. But their passion lies elsewhere, and maybe it's not immediately sort of food, but it's much easier and quicker to get that connection in terms of passion and doing that as a career. I guess you get more out of that than maybe in an office job or something that you've studied for, that you just struggle to find that connection with you and finding that passion.
And it's sort of also it's more instant gratification.
Yes.
Like imagine you have a food truck. Like we see these guys just making potatoes, it's net aardappels and baked beans with cars. But then it's big, And the social media has also, I think, contributed to that a lot.
Yeah, look, I think also then we have not just in Cape Town, all over South Africa, I would say all over the world in a way, people are open to try new things. Like that's now part of like going out, and that's the cool thing about Cape Town too. Again, talking about how blessed we are. I mean, if you're into wine, you can't be more blessed than living in South Africa and in being in the Western Cape, or even outside when you come and visit. There's too much to go and experience.
Yeah.
Too many. And the same thing when it comes to food. If
Yeah.
you're a foodie,
Yeah.
you are, and
Spoiled.
not just the fine dining, not just the high end, because the fine dining, that kind of revolution, the quality that we're getting now, it filters down to the normal restaurants too, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm a big breakfast guy. Love a
Yeah.
breakfast. And in Cape Town, I've been, since we've lived here for 8 months now, Natalie and I are still finding little cracks in the wall where it's like the food is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, like it's such a food culture in Cape Town.
Yeah.
It's been really nice.
But also equally, isn't it also so nice when you now drive out to Paternoster,
Yeah.
or you drive out to, McGregor and
Yeah.
those type of places, and all along the way too,
Yeah.
there's also some gems that you can find.
All
You
the
know,
pla- all the time.
that's the
All the time.
That's the
And
nice
it's like
thing.
sometimes things that are even been mentioned a lot, like you get your big popular spots, but in like you can stumble upon
Yes.
so much amazing food.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
I think there's definitely going to be sort of where we evolve. South Africa already, I would say, people come here not just because of the beauty of the country. Obviously, the food part of it plays a massive role in it. So that's just going to be, that's not going to stop.
yeah.
I think the world is also taking note of what's happening here in terms of, from a food point of view and a wine point of view. And that just allows sort of, especially if you a young chef or an entrepreneur, to kind of, we actually also open to quirkiness,
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
sort of left field, and I'm gonna go do something completely different.
Yes.
That just allows also for the different, let's say, South African sort of culture, cuisines and things that, we must be open to kind of like
Yes.
come up with those kind of ideas
Yes.
and go at it, And
Yeah.
marketing is not now, marketing is now social media,
Yeah.
It's
It's not as expensive and crazy anymore.
not anymore. It's
Yeah.
not. And you don't even have to put a menu in front of people. I went the other day to, they've been going for a while, but I was in Observatory
Yeah.
at a place called Reverie, social table. It's a young chef, Julia. Well, I got to know her back in Franschhoek. So she's got like a table of, I think, 14 to 16 people. You all sit together, and you don't know what you're going to get in terms of the food. I think you can give sort of your dietaries, maybe lactose intolerance or stuff like that. Now and then, if food comes out, she talks about the wine. She tells you after the first course, listen, scramble the table a little bit. You can't be sitting next to your wife all the time. Go talk to those people. Then they scramble it. Then I end up sitting next to some English people that came to South Africa for the first time. So that's a conversation. And then, and
Experience.
it's in OBS. It's not in an area where you would normally say you'd find that type of food.
Yes.
She's been going at it for quite some time now already. It was full. She's full every night. People know. I mean, that I was the only South African there. The rest were all Brits, overseas people. So these are the things. I've always thought in the Boerkaap, for example, that economy has been going also for a while from a food point of view.
Yes.
So even there's a lot more potential. I don't think we must ever try, though, to become too much like anybody else. I think in time we'll move away from trying to just be like something we saw in America or something we saw that side.
Being ourselves is the best version we're going to be.
That comes maybe in time,
Yes.
And from a affordability point of view for those guys, I mean, I think that is how
it's a big trump card. I mean, it's easy. Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you, obviously now the restaurants, first off, how do you manage 4 restaurants? How does that, like, it sounds like a daunting thing. How much time do you spend at each of them? Do you have to split your time? Because I used to have friends that we would go to Reuben's eating, and they go, this is good, but he's not here tonight. Like, I'm like, who be a J? You know what I mean? Like, it's good. It's not here tonight.
Yeah.
So, like, people find it very important that you are in the kitchen. They want you in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that I've had for many years. I
Yeah.
guess you can't really fight against that too much.
No,
you
no.
know, you have to just find that kind of midway, and also, I think you'll be silly to think if you're running businesses that you are the only person that can make it be successful. It's a team, you know. My wife's involved, for example. It's not just my eye that's checking and sort of tasting. It's me, myself. It's my wife. It's I've got a partner that's involved, especially in operations side. But yeah, look, I mean, you'll never be able to. It'll never be maybe the way it is for everybody all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So it is not easy to split. I mean, I had at some stage 7 restaurants going, you know. Then it's even more difficult. But I think you try and sort of work at your processes to make sure that it can be consistent. I think the focus should be on trying to make it consistent. But I do see the value in the owner being visible.
Yeah.
So those type of restaurants, obviously, where it's like, let's say I had only the one restaurant. Maybe it ends like that. You know, you never know. There's something special about that, where the owner's around, and it's like that placebo effect. It's not.
Yes.
It tastes better because I'm around.
Yes. You may not even have made that thing. Who weet ons, you know. But okay, cool. So I get that. Actually, weirdly, like you making it friends of mine many years ago. First time I ever traveled overseas was I was 27, and they took me. I was in Paris, and they took me to this little restaurant. It was owned by this family, and the auntie cooks it. And you see the kitchen, and it's full up. But I was like, ook so 10, 15 mensen. And I remember, I can't remember. I know the food was good, but the experience was so good because it felt so authentic.
Yes.
There's things beyond just the food that's happening in the space.
You know, when I started, the amount of times I was sitting there with guests that was like now pulling tables together, and now I'm sitting there having a drink with
Holding
them.
court.
And I get home at about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night. Those things happened so many times, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you try and manage it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I cherish the times that's happened, but I mean, it was just not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Elke aand 'n bietjie te aan. And last thing before I let you go. And first off, thank you for your time. I mean, I know you're very busy, and you made a commitment, and you came, and I love that.
Thanks.
I wanted to know if you had to recommend 3 restaurants outside of Reuben's in Cape Town or in South Africa that you think, for whatever reason, people should check out.
Wow. Okay, so from a experience point of view, and this is like where I think I've taken my kids as well. The one I didn't, but I have to say, and I'm okay. I went to Wolfgat in Paternoster.
Yes.
And obviously I know Kobus.
Yes.
I would say one of the few restaurants in the country where somebody has taken the place, the people, and given it to you on a plate and in a glass where there's nowhere else in the world where you can get what is given you.
Okay.
For me, that cannot be more special. It cannot get better than that, you know? And he's there serving it.
Yes. I've heard rave reviews. I've never been.
Yes. Like, I mean, you cannot go there with expectation from you obviously want to expect good flavors and everything. Yeah. But if you look at it from that point of view, and I wish we must learn a bit from that, because there's different parts of our country where we can also do similar things, where we're not just becoming similar to that one, and I've tasted this. Oh yeah, you guys also do that. I mean, where there is not what I've tasted, what I've experienced there was like, for me, you cannot get that anywhere else in the world. And then I would say I had a really amazing meal at, which is close to you, Bokenstancia.
Okay.
My kids came along as well. I remember actually that day,
Yeah.
they didn't have a table for Jamie Oliver. He was walking out. And I asked him, what, Jamie Oliver? They said, no, they made a mess up. They booked at the wine tasting and then they couldn't give him a table in the restaurant because they didn't. I was like, jeez.
I loop Jamie uit.
You got Jamie. You can see I was dawned. But I mean,
Yeah.
I've actually started to work with Luke Dale Roberts at the test kitchen when they started. He was the chef together. I mean, the guy is just amazing food.
Okay. Bokenstancia, yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, putting me a little bit on the spot here now.
Shame.
And this is, I'm going to focus on the fine dining places because
Okay.
it's kind of like where because I'll take it because it's an experience, you know.
Yes.
And then I have to give Luke's place, Salon at the Biscuit Mill.
Yes.
It's called Salon, the restaurant. In terms of where the food was also just different to what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
Again, you can take Natalie there.
I'm taking Natalie to all three.
You must take it to all
I'm
three.
taking it to all three.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like people are saying that. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. The salon place, like
It's in the Biscuit Mill.
yes, I know. We know the Biscuit Mill.
And I just felt, you know, I think he worked on a concept of the food,
Yeah.
like where the flavors come from different countries, but the flavor. Some places have too many dishes. I feel, you know, where it's maybe too heavy or it's just too many dishes.
Yeah.
But I felt there the balance, the flavors were like beautiful. Look, simple restaurants where our family go to is called the Cameron in Stellenbosch. We love that. It's kind of Italian.
Yes.
We love those type of restaurants. But for like a proper experience, and my kids love it too, to eat like that. They're not spoiled or anything like that. But
Dad's just a chef.
I enjoy it. I enjoy the experience,
Yeah.
taste experiences. I enjoy it, you know, like where they can. It's not like they have to kind of like explain to me what they're tasting.
Yeah.
But you know, like our senses and the things that we experience and tasting is like such a cool thing to taste things and like maybe discover a new flavor or something.
Also,
so I love it with them to enjoy
Yes,
it with them.
experiencing it through their eyes a little bit.
Yes.
And do you like when your kids? This is something I'm almost. Could you bring this up? What is it? Are you cooking at home? Are they, Dad, please? Are these kids because you saw Sondag aan baie keer is dit 'n toast and cheese.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but generally speaking, are your kids, are they eating from Reuben Riffel?
Yes, So, you know, the nice thing is, again, where we forget that doesn't happen a lot anymore, you know. I mean, a lot of people do still, but cooking something from scratch doesn't happen because we're also busy and we're running around. But that's how we still want. I mean, we also just have a cheese omelette now and then, or if we take away, it would be like fish and chips or something like that.
Yeah.
But they used to eating a home cooked meal, you know, it's like cooked from scratch. And so sometimes they're involved in it with it, or other times they're not. My son knows how to cook a steak. We actually, the other night I had to, because, you know, he's 12, so he feels like I know how to do it now. And I looked at how he did it the other day and I had to remind him, you see, you now think you know how to do it and then you don't focus.
Yeah.
And then look at that grey thing there. That's not how you do it. You know, it's how I do.
It-
But that's, you know, I have to kind of, because I taught him how, if it's a sirloin steak, for example, how to, you know, you render the fat out on the side a little bit, even though it's difficult to hold it like that, but that's important. And then sealing it, seasoning it, drying it before you actually season it, you know.
Yeah.
The heat of the pan. So he knows how to do that.
Yeah.
I always, for me, it's like they must start to learn to do one thing at least, you know.
Yeah.
So like my daughter, her thing, she loves salads. So I taught her how to make her own salad dressing, like,
Yeah.
and variations of it. So now that's her job. And
That's
putting a
good.
salad together.
I'm so glad you said that, because I would be so sad if these children were like, nah, never, I can't cook, I'm tired of cooking.
Yeah.
And you can weirdly say, you know what I mean? Like, you want Reuben Riffel's children to have a sophisticated palate, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but you know, I feel like it really, you know, I know a lot of maybe other chef friends from that I know, their kids maybe would know how to make sushi or anything, you know, like for me, it's not just knowing how to make things. It's their palates are now where they know what they want and what they don't want.
Yeah.
And also from you know, you would know when somebody made a burger that this is actually, I can taste these are fresh things. It was,
Yes.
you know, you can taste these.
Feels like the most important thing. I was just saying this to Natalie,
Yeah.
is like a hamburger, fresh ingredients is the most important thing.
Yes.
That is it. If you, ons kan nie meer met today's pies werk. Like,
Exactly.
it's become such a thing. And nowadays, I mean, some of the supermarkets, you know, the ones we're talking about, make it a little easier for you, that the ingredients are a little bit fresh and the mix in the patty is right and what all those things. But fresh ingredients are very important.
How nice is it? You know, when like we'll make like a simple thing like a chili con carne, you know, because let's say now we feel like some wraps.
Yeah.
I love, for example, beans, and so there's some kidney beans going in there. And then I learned, for example, through, and then I say to them, you know, the Mexicans put sometimes chocolate in their chili con carne, or like they make a mole, you know, like that kind of relish or whatever they make. They put cocoa in there. So cocoa is like a bit of bitterness. So now we started to add a bit of cocoa into our chili con carne with, you know, it's nice to play with these things. So that adds a bit of bitterness. So it's not a sweet, it's like a bit of bitter chocolate taste.
Yes.
And then
Wow.
we always like experiment and play. And I'm not, look, they like young kids too, they get lazy and they just want the food to be ready.
Yeah.
But now on their own, when we're not there, similar to maybe how I grew up, they would, like my daughter would bake her own sort of recipe of cookies that she made. Or my son is into noodles, so he will do his own. They can make food for themselves, you know.
Okay. So, but most nights, are you cooking for them?
Myself and then my wife. But then, like, very often, you know, like I make, you know, like the simple chicken curry. I'm talking now the wortels en die ertjies ene.
Ja, hy is lekker.
Ja, in 'n klein aartappeltjies wat
Ja,
daarbey
ja.
is. That is sometimes what we go to, you know.
Maar jy gooi seker nou nie
Dat
high
is-
spices wat ons in dit.
So I play on for me the sauce is obviously you know, curry, it's about how you make that sauce, and then so that's the type of thing I kind of, and then that flavor that comes out of the chicken, you know, because that is like the basis of the flavor of that curry, but they love that.
Of course.
And then lately we've fallen in love with eating making our own sushi rice, but not for sushi like because it's a sweet and sour rice. So we have that with fish or chicken or whatever like that.
Fantastic. Listen, sir, thank you for coming out. Thank you for spending all this time with us.
No,
this has been fun. I feel like we could have gone on for another hour.
But that's the thing, you know, I feel I can tell my story, but I obviously have, like yourself, a lot of other interests as well and things, so we can keep on talking forever, really. But
I would love to have you on again down the line, and then we come and we talk about these things. And I'm definitely taking Natalie to all these places. Weirdly enough, not too long ago, Stuart Taylor said they got a reservation at Wolfgat, and he's got a Michelin star chef, that guy, isn't it?
So we don't have that. He's not. He got once like an award back then for like the best restaurant in the world. Now I will say, and he will agree with me, Kobus, the owner. These awards are we have to always take it with a pinch of salt. I mean,
all awards, in everything,
and and I'm not knocking it completely. I'm just saying some of them have their own agendas.
Yes,
and we cannot have 20 different types of awards.
Yeah.
There's some synergy there, obviously, but I feel sometimes they give people the wrong impression. So, like in his
Yeah.
case, he was just voted the best restaurant in the world. Now, sometimes if you say that to people, it's a challenge to them to go there and to say, I know the best restaurant.
Yeah.
That's not,
Yeah.
you see, that
Now it
is
becomes
kind of
about
like-
something else.
Exactly.
And I've had the same opinions about award shows in comedy.
Yeah.
I go like, you must just take these things with a pinch of salt.
Exactly. So just kind of like
Yeah.
you can do your own research. I mean, how easy it is now to go and look at what is on the menu. I think with them, maybe certain things stay very similar, but it does change a lot. And quickly, I'll tell you what I had. One course that was just blew me away was sort of like a kind of like an ice leaf that they get there on the
Yeah.
dunes, I suppose. So it's kind of like crispy and like almost like iceberg, but it's got a nice, kind of slight bitter taste to it too. And then it was grapefruit and like fried local choca, like calamari,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was in there. So it's the grapefruit was kind of like a salsa, and I think there was a bit of chili. But the flavors there was something I've never had in my life before. Like, but from a like really
Yeah.
texture, flavor, I felt like, that was completely different. Because
Special.
listen, you can sit in stuffy, fancy restaurants and you can play along with how awesome it is. But deep down, you start to say to yourself, but man, it's getting too much now. This is not.
No, we've all had that experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, with him, Stuart went and he said, "Wow, it was amazing." And these restaurants are not easy to get into. You must. So for the people out there, give yourself some lead time.
No, yeah.
I think like Volgat is like, you're lucky if you get like a.
No, there's some
It's
block.
months.
There's some months that's blocked off where you just can't get in, and they're only open for lunch, for example. So you.
Yeah.
But think about it, Paternoster. Back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
Those things didn't exist there. And now you drive quite far to go. And that's what Michelin was about. Michelin
Yes.
was about. Actually getting into your car and
Driving and
out to
finding.
places to find.
Yeah, it was the tire company.
Yeah.
The weird thing is about Paternoster is that I never had any contact with it until I started doing stand-up there. And Paternoster's got the cutest little theater.
Oh, wow.
And I go in off-season and it's such a unique little space. So there's a lot of cool things happening in Paternoster. There's that. And there's a good couple other restaurants. And also the fact that, people are getting seafood readily. I don't know say
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? It's a lot happening there. They've got a little thing called the cool calmers. You sit on these
Yes.
like the normale stoelen.
Yes.
And you don't know where these people come out from.
Yeah.
Maar boom, is full. And we have the best time.
We must actually, I'm going to try and where there's a Swartland Revolution. It's I was actually trying to get tickets in now. It's quite expensive, but it would be so cool, in time where food and even what you do and wine and those things could be where the industries come a bit closer to it together,
Because they live in the same space.
Exactly.
Yes, they do.
Where those talents are also sort of like combined and used.
Yes.
Because now it's obviously stays food and wine. And I'm not talking just comedy. There's more.
Arts. Yeah.
The arts especially. And because I think there's, while we're talking about Wolfgat, and I'm thinking, I know a winemaker, Adi Badenhorst, lives out there.
Yeah.
Close to Malmesbury, and it would be so cool to go to his space and for you to meet him. And I can just see so many sort of synergies there.
Yes. Let's make that happen.
We must really make that happen.
Let's just go there.
We just go.
I'd love to just go with you and your wife. I'll maybe we'll bring Natalie.
No, Natalie must come.
Natalie's the reason. Everyone's a Natalie fan, and then we should go there. Because I really am open to those things. I want to experience these things. And it's like, it feels like such a tragedy that these things are happening on our doorstep and we don't have, we just don't go down the road. South Africans need to stop going to the chain restaurants. I know there's a place for that, guys. But I mean, We should just give something a shot down the road, and see what it's all about. Yeah.
Ah, man, listen, the smaller, little steakhouses, there's so many
Family-run
things, but I
businesses.
think people do that, and
Yeah.
But listen, thanks also
Please, thank you
I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, man,
Such a privilege.
I know we've kind of like communicated a little bit, but never have actually met each other.
Yes, this is the first time.
Yeah. Also, congrats on all your success, and this is awesome.
Thank you, sir.
I really enjoyed being part of this. So
Thank you so much again for coming, and let's make that even if we're just having a meal. Let's make that happen.
Gonna do it.
Thank you, Mania. Cheers.